Welcome, listeners, to the Information Nation, brought to you by the Department of Environmental Management, Division of Fish and Wildlife, Hunter Education Program here in Rhode Island. I am your host, Scott Travers, the Hunter Education Coordinator for the state of Rhode Island, and I have with me...
Hi, I'm Dana Kopek, the Technical Assistant for the Hunter Ed Program.
Fantastic. And as always, we're coming from the Outdoor Education Office located in Exeter, Rhode Island, where, as always, our focus is on hunting, hunter education, fishing, aquatic education, and all things wildlife outreach related in the state of Rhode Island. Happy New Year! This being our first episode of 2023, we're going to be discussing the varying requirements for wearing and the use of daylight fluorescent orange, otherwise known as hunter safety orange, in the state of Rhode Island. So Dana, tell us, what's the accepted shade of orange? Can you wear just any color orange when you're in the woods?
You actually can't. It has to be daylight glow fluorescent orange, and it has to be solid in color. It can't have any pattern. So if you go to the store and you see some really cool fluorescent orange shirt, but it has like a camo pattern overlay on it, that is not acceptable. It can't have stripes, anything else. It has to just be plain, solid, daylight fluorescent orange.
Right. And a lot of those outdoor, clothes that you wear, jackets and hats and stuff, come with that orange, black, and gray kind of camo pattern to them. For all of those science kids out there, remember that if we're talking about that hunter safety orange, that means it has to have a dominant wavelength between 595 and 606 nanometers, and an excitation purity not less than 85%, as well as a lamination factor of not less than 40%. And I know most people are probably going to have no idea what that means, but for the sake of our discussion and for the sake of safety being out in the woods, we have to remember that it's that commonly seen high fluorescent orange color.
Thank you for that scientific moment, Scott.
Absolutely.
Just another common question we get is, how come orange? Why not, fluorescent yellow that you see a lot of first responders wearing, directing traffic and at accidents and stuff?
Right, gotcha. And, I know in the DOT world, or Department of Transportation world, a lot of agencies and police departments as well have gone to that green color. It's like a chartreuse color, which really, really stands out. But the reason why we're staying with orange, as well as other states, is that hunters are used to looking for that color, and it stands out really well in all seasons. When we talk about wearing hunter safety orange, it's not just hunters that should be wearing hunter safety orange.
That is correct. While hunters have to wear it, different amounts depending on the hunting season, also hikers, bikers, horseback riders, and any users of state management areas and designated undeveloped state parks have to wear 200 square inches of this solid daylight fluorescent orange from the second Saturday in September to the last day of February, and then again the third Saturday in April to the last day in May during hunting seasons.
Right, gotcha. So when we talk about 200 square inches, that's normally about the same size as a hat. So it's commonly accepted that if you're wearing a hat, whether it's a baseball style hat or if it's a knit hat that would keep you warmer in colder weather, that's commonly accepted to be 200 square inches.
You also don't want to forget about your pets. If you are walking dogs or you're on horseback, make sure that you put some orange on them as well.
Right. And when we're talking about the amount of square inches of orange, if that hat we were just talking about is 200 square inches, a vest, which can also be worn outdoors, that's generally accepted as being 300 square inches of orange. And you're going to hear Dana and I talk about the different seasons when orange is required. And there are those two different amounts, 200 square inches and 500 square inches. So for the 200 square inch requirement, you can just wear a hat. Or for the 500 square inch requirement, a hat and vest would suffice.
That's correct. You could also just wear a vest for the 200 square inch requirement, but it's always best to have the orange as high as possible on your person. So the hat is a better option than the vest.
Right, absolutely. Especially if you have like a short haircut. Like I personally have a short haircut, and I'm not the tallest guy in the world. So if I'm walking through some thick vegetation, all people are going to see is the top of my head. So we want to make sure, like Dana said, that if you're going to be wearing orange outside as required, that you have that as high as possible on your body so that people can be aware that you're out there.
So let's break down what type of hunting and season requires 200 square inches, Scott.
Gotcha. And of course, it's important to know which season requires what amount. If we talk about 200 square inches, that's usually commonly accepted for the muzzleloader hunting season for deer in Rhode Island. Also, the small game season and fall turkey hunters when traveling to and from their stands. Also, for archers, the requirement's a little bit more specific, and that's 200 square inches while traveling to and from elevated stands during that muzzleloader season. However, once they're in their stand, they're not required to have that orange on. Another thing to keep in mind is that hunters who are using ground blinds, like those commonly seen and commonly used pop-up blinds, as well as homemade blinds, if people are just dragging pieces of vegetation and stuff to make a blind in the field, you have to have 200 square inches of orange visible in 360 degrees above that blind. That's why a lot of times I'll tell people, and also myself, whenever I'm hunting in the woods, I'll probably be wearing a baseball style hat that's solid orange, because when I'm moving, my heart rate is up and I'm actively moving, so my blood is circulating, my heart rate is higher, and it's keeping me warm as I'm, exerting myself physically. But once I get into the blind, then my heart rate's going to slow down, my circulation will decrease, and it's going to start to have that cooling effect on me as I begin to feel the temperature outside as my, workload decreases, because I'm just sitting still in a certain location. And that's when I'll switch out to one of those knit hats that's also solid orange. And I always keep that in my backpack. So I'll always have at least 2 hats with me anyway. So once you get to the blind, you'll always have an extra hat to put out for that 200 square inch requirement for displaying outside the blind, if you just make sure to always have 2 hats with you.
Do the hunters inside the ground blinds have any daylit fluorescent orange requirements?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dana, because a lot of people think that, well, if I'm in a ground blind, nobody can see me anyway, and I have the 200 square inches on the outside of the blind, so it doesn't really matter. But that's not really true. If you're in the blind, you still have to have whatever amount of hunter safety orange is required. Let's talk about 500 square inches and what season requires that.
You can meet the 500 square inch requirement by wearing a hat, which is 200 square inches, like we had previously said, and a vest, which is 300 square inches. And this is required during shotgun season for all hunters, including archers.
While at that period in time, hunters have to wear 500 square inches, but how about other people who are using the management area? Do they have to also wear 500 square inches?
Any other users of the state land management areas or undeveloped state parks only have to be wearing the 200 square inches, which is a hat of some kind.
So are there any hunters that are exempt from wearing hunter safety orange while they're hunting?
There are several. The first is raccoon hunters when hunting at nighttime, crow hunters while hunting over decoys, spring turkey hunters, and first segment dove hunters.
Also, waterfowl hunters while they're hunting from a boat or a blind over water, or in a field in conjunction with decoys.
And in areas that are limited to archery only.
We had one funny story from the field that Dana's going to tell us about something that happened to her. It wasn't while she was hunting, but it was while she was in a management area during a time when orange was required.
It was. It was during hunting season, and myself and 2 of my friends were just hiking along a trail. And one of my friends was wearing pretty much a gray outfit with a solid daylight fluorescent orange hat, and my other friend had that hunter safety orange hoodie, and they both had to go to the bathroom kind of at the same time. So one went in one direction and she kind of disappeared into the woods, and the other one went in the other direction, and it was just blatantly obvious where she went because she was sticking out like a sore thumb with her orange hoodie. I mean, it was doing its job, but when you're trying to be clandestine, when you're going to the bathroom in the woods, it's not really the best thing. So I stayed on the trail, and along comes a group of hikers, and I'm like, oh no, and they're gonna spot her from a mile away. This is so bad. So I'm like, hey, how you doing? How's your hike going? And I'm trying to distract them from looking over towards my friend because I didn't want her to be spotted. She was trying to hide behind a log, and it just wasn't working. So
it kind of worked negatively in that case.
It did. So there's an instance where the hunter safety orange isn't the best option, but you still have to keep it on because you're still in the woods. And I was able to distract that group of hikers, so I kind of spared my friend from embarrassment.
Well, thank goodness for that. But yeah, it just goes to show, though, how much you do stand out when you have that extra amount of orange on. And, like we've been saying, even though these are the minimums that we're talking about there's nothing saying that you can't wear more orange and, raise more awareness about yourself being out there in the woods. Like, again, as Dana said, if she had a full solid fluorescent orange jacket, hooded sweatshirt, or anything like that, that would still be a good idea to wear.
Scott, is there a fine or anything that you could incur if the environmental police see you using the state land management areas or the undeveloped state parks and you're not wearing the required orange during the seasons that you're supposed to be?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dana, because that is actually a state law. It doesn't just apply to hunters, it applies to all users of the area. So you could potentially be cited by the Rhode Island Environmental Police when they see you out there. While they generally will give people the heads up and they're always work towards informing people, they're not out there just to issue citations and to harass people. They're there to educate people. But if they encounter you 2, 3, 4 times and you're still not wearing orange, there's always the possibility that you could be cited. And what was the fine for that, Dana?
I believe it's $100.
Well, yeah. So, and especially this, day and age where that money could be put towards something else, you certainly don't want to deal with a fine just because you weren't wearing orange in the woods when you should have been.
Right, and I'm pretty sure you can get a hat and a vest for like under 30.
Yeah, really easy.
So say I'm a non-hunter, I'm a hiker or a bicyclist or a horseback rider, and I want to find out what hunting season it is and what the safety orange requirements are. Where would I go to find that information?
Great question. You can always check online because all that information can be found on our website. We also have several videos that we've posted via social media on the hunter orange requirement in the state of Rhode Island.
On Facebook and Instagram.
That will let you know exactly how much orange and what the season dates are when you should be wearing them. I'd also let people know, just on a side note, whenever I'm out in the woods, whether or not the orange requirement is out there or it's those specific times of year that people are hunting, I always wear orange. God forbid someone should be turned around in the woods or get lost in the woods at any point in time, no matter what season it is. It would also be a great way for you to stand out so people know that you're there. And if you should become lost for any reason, we'll be able to find you easier and help you out if you need any medical assistance.
You can also download a PDF copy of the Rhode Island Hunting and Trapping Regulations Guide through our website.
And you can also pick up a copy at most locations that sell outdoor activity-related items.
And that hunting and trapping guide will have the safety orange requirements detailed inside of it.
So that wraps up this month's episode of the Information Nation podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and look for our next exciting episode next month. Remember, if you have any questions for me or the Hunter Education team, you can reach out to me via email at scott.travers@dem.ri.gov. So until next time, make sure you take a moment for yourself and to get out into nature and enjoy some of the wonderful outdoor areas that we have to enjoy in the wonderful state of Rhode Island.